Now, this isn't going to be a story easy to tell. It's got a lot of detail and a little background to it, so I'm going to suggest you go get your cup of coffee or your soft drink or your iced tea now. You might even pick up a donut or a bag of potato chips to go with it. I've got my supper on the stove. I'm having pork tenderloin, and I put a nice big sweet potato in the oven. Nothing better than that, because I've yet to make the salad. So that's going to be my supper, and I can smell it now. I don't want to be here too long, because I sure don't want anything to burn. Okay, the story I'm going to tell you goes way back. It could be considered a comedy, just depends on how you tell it. Because as a grass widow, you find yourself with a lot of problems that you don't know how to take care of. There's nobody around to help you. That's why I say every high school student, especially the women, need to take courses in electrical, plumbing, basic carpentry in high school, because you're going to find yourself in need of all of these things. And I've got a story to tell for every one of them. You have to learn a lot of things because you can't afford to hire the electrician. You can't afford the $300 plumbing bill. And you got to learn how to hang wallpaper. Anybody can paint. Just takes a little practice. Some are better than others. I was pretty good, but I was kind of slow at it. I have painted. I've laid tile on the floor. I put up paneling. What else have I done? Okay, wallpapered a lot of houses. Done a lot of wallpaper. And of course all this fancy painting you have to do. You have to have the right kind of paint. Don't go buying water-based paint and coming home with oil-based paint that you don't realize it's oil-based until you've already put the first coat on the wall. And then you go back and you buy water-based paint. Well, let me tell you something. You can't paint with water-based paint over an oil-based finish. It doesn't work. That's another story. This story takes place when got both my kids out of school. Well, actually, Greg was in college and Jan had her own job. She had a roommate somewhere. And it's time for me to make a move. I didn't like my job anymore. So I decided I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to open a craft shop. Best place to open a craft shop was go back home. So that's what I did. I found the perfect house right on the edge of the business district. In other words, the house I bought was built in 1907. It had a lot of character about it, been taken good care of. And it was one block from Main Street downtown. What's better than that? You've got the traffic going up and down between my house and the biggest church in town across the street. So, good location. Okay, I'd already put new wallpaper in 3 bedrooms and the kitchen. Don't remember what I did about the dining room. Oh well, that doesn't matter anyway. The living room was a large room, had fireplace at one end. I didn't use the fireplace. It had a small gas heater sitting inside, and only used that when it got very, very cold in the winter and you needed extra heat. So the thing about the living room was, didn't like the wallpaper, but it also had wallpaper on the ceiling. Same wallpaper. That was going to present a problem, having to do that, so I put that off. But what I was going to do was work on the mantel. Above the mantel was a mirror. The 1960s period mirror. You know the kind, plain, rectangle, no frame, no ornate trim, just a big rectangle mirror with 4 screws, one in each corner, up above. Now this mirror was about, I'm guessing, 40 by 50. 50 inches was as far as my arms would reach, including my fingers. Okay, I didn't like that mirror. I was wondering if I could take it down, and was there wallpaper behind it? I couldn't see. If I had to remove the mirror, what if there was no wallpaper back there? What was I going to do? I wasn't in the period of getting ready to do more wallpaper on plastered walls. So I had to see behind the mirror. It's only one way. I took the 4 screws out. 1, 2, 3, 4. They were those big long screws like this into plaster. The mirror was fine, set right there without, because it set right on the edge of the mantel. So it was still there even without the screws, but I couldn't see behind the mirror. All right, I start pulling it away from the wall a little bit, just enough to see what was back there. Wouldn't you know, no wallpaper back there. That meant the mirror had to stay. All right, I get the screws laying on the mantel, and I start screwing it into the holes where they'd been before. Guess what? That screw went right in, right out. It wasn't holding anything. Oh, Lordy mercy, what am I going to do? I'm having to hold that mirror against the wall while I'm putting the screws in, and the screws aren't doing anything. A 50-inch mirror by 40 inches, and I'm leaning against it like spread eagle. If I let go, the mirror falls forward. It couldn't fall forward. There's nothing there. If it fell forward, it'd go straight to the floor and break all to pieces. What was I going to do? I needed help. But that was the days before cell phones and iPhones. Only phone I had was in the kitchen. Couldn't get to that phone, so I could call somebody and say, come and help me. Another problem there. Everybody that came to my house came to the back through the back door. I had a front porch screened in. I had a back porch screened in. And my back door was locked. Phone call wouldn't have done me any good at all. They couldn't get in the house. I'm standing there like this, holding that mirror up against the wall. I let go, it came forward. Okay, maybe if I could get the mirror edged to the edge of the mantel. The mantel's about 12 inches deep. So if I could scoot it an inch at a time, get it to the front edge, and get it down to the floor. Do you know how heavy a 40 by 50 inch mirror is? You know what would happen? If I got my hands on those edges and I couldn't hold that mirror and it decided to slide, that mirror had been cut straight. Didn't have any protection of any kind. Mirror in between my hand. That mirror could cut my hand in two. There was no possible way I could get that mirror off that mantel unless I stood back and let it fall to the floor and crash. Well, there was a little kitchen chair, one of those little old-fashioned wooden chairs, just a few feet over. The only thing close enough for me to reach is one of those little rounded backs. Now, it wasn't very heavy. It couldn't hold anything heavy, but if I could get the mirror to slide down the front of the mantel onto that chair, that would hold it, even though I'm still holding it. Get it that far, then I can get it the rest of the way to the floor. Now, you don't know how scared I was. I didn't know if that was going to work or not. But the first thing was, I couldn't reach the chair. I am stretching, and I mean stretching, my body with one leg out as far as I can get it, trying to get that foot behind that first chair leg. If I can get my foot behind that chair leg, I can pull the chair forward. Keep pulling it, little at a time, till I got it under the mantel. Why couldn't somebody come along? They couldn't get in the house that they did. So here I was, this grass widow, as my mother called me, trying to solve my own problems. It wasn't easy. I finally gave in. See, it didn't have any gloves, didn't have rags, nothing could I reach except the screw that wouldn't go in the wall and hold the mirror. It just slid right back out. Screw like this. That's what's been in that plastered wall for years. And if I got it back in, it was going to stay forever. I said, okay, this is it. This is it. Can't use the phone. The doors are locked. Everything in my life worked that way. Do it yourself. A do-it-yourself grass widow. That's what I was. That's what my mother said. I finally got the chair over under the mantel, and I start pulling inch by inch. I was scratching the mantel. I didn't care about that. Didn't care how much paint I took off. I had to get that mirror to the edge. And when I got it to the edge, now my arms are straight out because they're as far as I could reach, and they were like this. I'm giving you an example. You see where my hands are. My hands were like that behind the mirror, but my arms were straight out. But that's how I was holding the mirror. And I was as far up as I could reach, so that if it did start cutting my hand, it didn't have to go a long way. I just had that much room. I dropped that mirror down. It slid through. Didn't harm my hand. Got it to the chair, but I couldn't let it go because it was too heavy for the chair. That little chair would have flopped right over. I still had to get it from the chair, leaning against the fireplace. Still had to get it to the floor. Here we go, the second trip. We're halfway there. I held on to the top of the mirror like this. Have you ever lifted one of those mirrors? Well, I'm going to suggest to you, don't ever buy one. And you won't have to worry about lifting it. I got the mirror to the floor. Finally. That was the biggest relief in the world. And like I said, I was a do-it-yourselfer. If I didn't have enough wallpaper, I would take those ends. You know, when you have a repeat of your wallpaper, there's a section about like this that gets cut off because you got to match it. And so the next row, and I learned later that what you do, you have this piece of wallpaper and the second piece and the third piece. Pretend there's one in between. 3. Okay, you got the first piece. Skip the second piece and do the third piece and they match. I didn't know that in those days. So I always had a section of wallpaper like this, and I would have maybe 2 strips left that needed wallpaper. I cut it out, piece by piece. I cut that wallpaper out and made it match. Where there's a will, there's a way. So many projects I had. I've got 3 or 4 more stories like this. I put off telling them about my sunshine yellow bathroom and plumbing in the bathroom and hanging a Indiana Hoosier cabinet on the wall. This was the upper section. Oh, you'll love those stories. I'll get around to them, and they're in my book. But sometimes telling the story has more effect than if you are reading it. You get the reaction of the storyteller, and it's either sad or it's funny. Oh my gosh, the experiences I've had as a grass widow. Now, if anybody ever mentioned that word to you, you'll know what they are. They're the wife that her husband didn't die. He flew the coop. He's still around. And you become a grass widow. I kind of like that expression. It's funny how many times my mother said that, and I never knew what she meant. But I do now, and you do too. And I don't know, I think I might look it up on the internet and see if there's a definition for grass widow. I'll let you know if I find it. I didn't want to stay on this video too long because I'm watching my food in the kitchen and I am so hungry. I'm not sure I can wait to finish up that pork tenderloin. It's been in the freezer a long time, one of those great big ones, so I decided to cut it in half. That's an awful lot of meat for one person. You get tired of it. Don't care how good it is, you get tired of it. You want something different. You want a Chick-fil-A or you want a McDonald's hamburger. Actually, at McDonald's, I prefer the fish sandwich. Speaking of fish sandwich, years ago, now what year? This would have been in the 1980s. There was a McDonald's across the street from where I worked, and every now and then I'd go get a fish sandwich. Excuse me. That's the only thing they had that I liked. I didn't care anything about their hamburger. So I would get a plain little old fish sandwich, French fries, and a small Coke. $1. That's how much my lunch cost. $1 for the fish sandwich, the French fries, and a small Coke. Go price it today. Next time you go through a McDonald's, check the price on that and see what you're paying. You're gonna be shocked, very shocked. Of course, 1980s, that's 40 years ago, I know. But even so, whoa, the difference in price. Well, I don't know anything to add to this except I got really good response on my, what was my last story about? Can't even remember what I talked about. Oh, I was talking about Al Hurt and Pete Fountain. And I want to explain about the little guy that carried Al Hurt's trumpet. He was just about the same size as Sammy Davis Jr. Now, he didn't look like Sammy Davis Jr., but you know through the years, all the movies and things you've seen of him, he was a small fellow. And so was this guy. Now, my question to you is, how many of you have ever seen spats? It's a time period, I would call it the Art Deco time period. Go look at those old movies. Check the men's shoes. See what they're wearing. You know, as far as I know, they may have been for design, but I think they were for protecting the men's shoes. There's a lot of dust and dirt. They didn't have finished roads, so your shoes could, you'd be in a nice black tuxedo and look down at your feet and you got dirt and dust all over your feet. So what would work best? Spats. I wish somebody had a pair of them just for show. I have not, in fact, I've never seen a real pair. The only ones I've seen were in the movies. But that experience with Al Hurt and this little fellow, sure wish I knew his name. How often would you see the same person as far apart as Nashville, Tennessee and New Orleans? And the shock and surprise of where you'd seen him before. It was pretty exciting, to tell you the truth. And that was the story I told when I told Jan. I can't come up with any more stories. You can tell the stories. You've got them. All you have to do is, it'll pop in your head. Don't start trying to figure it out. It's going to come to you. You've got a lot more story to tell. Now, you'll have to admit, she has been very good encouragement for me. Instead of saying, well, why don't you just quit? Drop the YouTube channel. Or, you've told enough stories. That'll last you a while. No, she says, you've got more stories to tell. And she never criticizes the stories I tell. You don't expect that from your daughter or your mother. Those are the two people that can criticize each other and get by with it. Because it's like constructive criticism. It's like helpful criticism. It's to boost your ego. It's to tell you that, yes, you can do it. And see, I have to have that kind of encouragement. Because I can get to the point of where I think, oh, I can't do that. I could never tell that story. You got that person saying, yes, you can. You know the story, you tell it. You have to give my daughter credit. She's got enough problems of her own. Hold on. Do you know how many times a day I hear that? Quite often. And I always wait to see when the siren ends. Are they stopping here? The reason I say that is because at Hanover Towers, we've had a lot of elderly people who have lived here. And they've left Hanover Towers never to return. And I wait to see if the siren stops in front of the building, because I can look out my window, look straight down 8 floors, and see if there's an ambulance there. Sometimes I think one of these days it just might be me. And it will be. It will be. I mean, I don't worry about things like that. It's just part of nature. You were born, you lived, and you will die. I'm not too concerned about it. That's just the way life is. Got no more story to tell. I'm kind of running out, you know. And Billie Jean, he's still cooking. Oh my gosh, how I wish I lived next door to him. Whoa, wouldn't it be nice to have an actual chef prepare you? And he is. He's a chef. He was trained in Paris, France. I don't think he wants everybody to know his background, but how often have you known someone who's a chef that got their training in Paris, France? I know one like that. And he's good. He's good. You need to watch his show, Just Me, Billie Jean. He's a very kind person, very knowledgeable. Anything you talk about, he's very knowledgeable. I'm learning a lot from him. But I just wish he lived next door so that he could do my cooking for me. So folks, I know you've listened long enough. I like to keep my stories within the 30-minute range, and some of you still say you like the longer stories. My sisters say you talk too long. Well, that's what sisters are for. Is to criticize you. And you say, sure, yeah, I know. So, and I can always say, you don't have to watch me. So anyway, it's a pretty day today, not too much sun, and I think it's supposed to be 94 degrees tomorrow. I've got to run one or two errands. Oh, I have to tell you this. I talked to Jan last night. Now see, she's in this old farmhouse. This old farmhouse was also built in 1907. It's a beautiful house, beautiful farm, belonged to Charlie. So Jan sells her house and 7 acres just about a half a mile away. And now she's living in Charlie's house. I don't know what, yeah, this is what I was going to tell you. She said, would you like to come out? Anytime you want to come out. Well, see, I can't drive those country roads. They're narrow and winding, and I've lost faith in my own driving, and Jan doesn't want me out there alone anyway. She comes and gets me. That's a 30-mile drive one way. And I know she's busy. She's got a lot to do. Not much time for running back and forth, picking up Mom. And she said, anytime you want to come out and stay 2 or 3 days, we'll find a project. We'll find something to do. And maybe we can get out on the farm and find some things that we can take pictures of and videos. And she is the best with a camera. She's got the bald eagles. She loves waiting outside and watching the bald eagles in the top of those old dead trees. And that's one thing I do know. They perch in the very top of those dead trees. They're easy to see. And she never misses a one of them. And she has beautiful pictures of the bald eagles in her neighborhood. I don't know how many there are. She thinks there might be about 6 of them. But there are 2 of them that hang around close to her house. And she got the rabbit now. You know what the rabbits are doing? They're getting in her garden. Oh, well, when I go out to Jan's, we're going to work on cooking. we're going to come up with something good that you'll enjoy. So, you just stick with me. You can give me a little constructive criticism, but don't be nasty. I don't like nasty people, and you don't either. So, if you want to be nasty, start your own channel. I don't know how many viewers you'll get, but that'll keep you busy. So anyway, my gaggle gets in the way. See how nice that would be if that didn't stick out like that. I keep thinking about wearing turtlenecks, but my neck's too short for a turtleneck. I've said enough. It's time to close this video. And let me know, don't ever buy a big 40 by 50 mirror to go above a mantel unless you want it to hang there for the next 60 years. That's the end of my story. I'm going to go check my dinner. Thank you for watching.